Yeah, Jay, just maybe how the players respond to earlier than usual practice.
Well, I thought today was good. By the way, sweet microphone. I love it. Um, yeah, I thought it was good. Early morning. We were trying to save the good weather that we're supposed to have Monday for scrimmage so we could be a little, you know, more physical on the grass, was the idea. But I thought today was a good changeup. I think we got better. We still have a lot of things we're working through, just young guys that need the reps and development. But I like the progression so far through spring.
Where have you seen the most progression thus far?
Some of the young corners, I think Jonathan Cabella and Trey Alexander have made great strides. Has been a good deal. I really like the depth in the safety group. Just Tommy Prasas, Falatau Satawala, Raider Demooney. Those guys have elevated their play to be up there with Tanner Wall. So those four guys right now, I think, are playing very well. Uh, and then Keanu obviously makes a big difference in the middle. So we're excited about just getting to watch him all season. A lot of the guys that are some of our players that we know about, have taken limited reps. Glasgow really hasn't done anything with his wrist, and then Jack Kelly's been limited on just what we need to get done, and so is Keanu. But um, when those guys are all out there, I'm excited to see what it looks like.
All right, Jake Hatch, go ahead next, and then Jay Drew, you're after that.
Yeah, Jay, I just wanted to ask you in terms of balancing, you talk about young players versus vets. What is the balance? Is it 50-50 in spring? How do you go about that?
Well, yeah, I don't know if we have a percentage on it per se, but we try to get the veteran guys that we know about opportunities to continue to stretch themselves and get better. But all the while, we got to keep them healthy. And so that's such a balancing act. And then the young guys, man, you just go with them. You beat them to an oblivion in a way, and you just let them go and go and go and go. And it's physical for them, and they're taking a ton of reps, but they need them and they want them. So that's the key is just putting the majority of the physicality on the twos and threes that haven't played a lot for you, and then giving them the majority of the reps because you got to build your depth and you got to see if one of those guys is with the reps is able to, beat out one of the other guys that's played more.
You guys are going up against a fairly veteran offense in practice here. How has that helped your guys?
Well, I think Coach Roderick and his crew do such a phenomenal job. They're creative. That staff is very veteran. They've been around. They know how to put their players in positions to be successful, and it's a battle every day. And they throw their shots for sure. So I'm excited to watch those guys on the field. I like the progression of a lot of the young players on that side of the ball too that really haven't played a lot. They've got some depth at a lot of different positions, and I think they're progressing well. I know Coach Roderick could comment more on that, but it's fun to go against them every day.
Jay, if fall camp were to start today, are you comfortable with the personnel you have on defense, or are there maybe a couple areas where you might want to see another body or two come in help?
Now, do I think we'd win? Yes. Do I love where some of those guys are at? Not yet. If it started today, so we got to continue to add depth in the D tackle group. We got to get some beef and some physicality in there. I think those guys have made big strides, and adding Keanu, like I mentioned, really helps. But that group's got to be a little more stout, especially with the twos and the threes. And then we got some young defensive ends that need all the reps they can get, and which is fine. We still have 6 spring practices, and we have uh, 25 in the fall, so there's a lot of development still left to be done. Um, if we were to start today, like I say, I think we'd win, but maybe not quite where I'd want us to be.
Okay, Mitch, you had another question?
Just to follow up on some of those young defensive players, how have maybe the freshman class, whether they're return missionaries or true freshmen out of high school, how do you feel like they're responding to the level up and competing at Power Four level?
I think they're doing very well. A couple guys that are standing out. I think Pearson Watson is doing a great job. I mentioned Jonathan Cabea just because we saw him a little bit last year, but I really like his progression and where he's at. And then Falatau and Tommy have done great things. The addition of Tausili Akana has really improved our pass rush. I think he's doing a great job. I think Hunter Clegg is going to be a great player. So I'm just off the top of my head. It's probably not fair to single out just those guys, but off the top of my head, those ones stand out to me as guys that can do some things. Anisi Purcell, transfer from Southern Utah. He's very athletic. He's put on a ton of size since we signed him, and I think he's going to be a great player for us. So we're definitely heading in the right direction with those guys. But I think the key word is just progress. They got to continue to progress.
Okay, Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, Jay, you had guys like Tyler Batty last year who were vocal leaders who really kind of rallied the troops. Are you seeing guys like that stepping up on this year's squad already?
A little bit, but I think that's part of that progression I'm talking about. I think Tanner Wall can be a great leader. Keanu could be a great leader. Glasker and Jack Kelly, those guys are leaders on this defense. I think they're trying to figure out what that role looks like. Losing Batty and Blake Mangelson and John Nelson, those were three veteran guys that had played a ton of football for us in the front and were kind of your vocal leaders, but they were also your tough guys that just added that atmosphere in practice, and they added that toughness that you really wanted. And then Jacob Robinson, his communication in the secondary was so key for us. So we're working through that. I would not say we're there yet with leadership, but we're working through it, and I do think we'll be in a really good spot come fall.
I wanted to ask you about Tanner Wall. We heard from Kalani about him the other day, but what have you seen from him? Where has he progressed the most so far this spring?
Well, Tanner's that kid that he's a coach's dream. He does everything right. He gets great grades. I mean, he's in the MBA program here at BYU. He's an academic All-American. Had 3 interceptions last year in real critical games, so it wasn't just like in the blowouts. I mean, he was making huge plays at big times. I just love his progression. I love his buy-in to what we've asked him to do, and it's showing on and off the field. You want to buy stock in someone, buy it in Tanner Wall. That kid's pretty special.
Jared, go ahead.
Jay, I know you guys always self-scout. I was curious about, the evolution of the defense. How much of it is focusing on execution, or will you be tweaking the scheme at all? Or, I know this is a time where you can kind of make a few adjustments as you prepare for fall. So I was just curious how you look at the evolution of your defense that way.
Yeah, Jared, that's a great question because the defense is always changing, and it changes based on personnel. It changes based on opponent. Whether I feel like we can stop the run with the guys we have, or do we got to add one to the box, or do we got to try to slant and move a little bit? It's just always changing. Like last year, a good example, we didn't really have a 300-pounder that was playing for us. So we were doing a little bit more slants and stunts and things to eat up gaps and try to, keep offenses on their toes on exactly where we were going to be. And it worked. This year's a little different because we add some guys and subtract some guys. And so the scheme's ever evolving. I don't think it changes drastically, but where we place our emphasis and what we got to do to be successful does change. I've got basically a 25-year playbook that we can draw from to try to get guys in the best positions possible to be successful.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have another question for Coach Hill? All right, Jay.
Perfect. Appreciate you guys. Go
Okay.
Cougs.